Hello, I'm Dr. Calum MacLeod. I'm the Policy Director for Community Land Scotland. We're the membership organisation for Scotland's rural and urban landowning community trusts. We argue that land reform, defined as changes to how land is owned and used in the public interest, is essential to ensuring that the climate emergency is tackled effectively and fairly. It's important to note from the outset that Scotland has one of the most concentrated patterns of land ownership in the world. Most of Scotland's rural land, around 83%, is privately owned. 50% of that privately owned land is in the hands of around 400 owners. That's 0.008% of Scotland's population. And it's important to bear in mind as well that not all these owners actually live in Scotland. Does that uniquely concentrated pattern of monopoly land ownership actually matter? Well, yes, it does. It matters because how land is owned and used, and crucially who benefits from these arrangements, influences whether Scotland tackles the climate emergency in a socially just way. Unfortunately, there's a structural problem with concentrated monopoly private land ownership. Conspicuous consumption rather than social justice is a feature of the private estates market in Scotland. According to market analysis, for most private buyers, an estate is a luxury purchase to enjoy, not unlike a super yacht or a Lamborghini. In contrast, for many rural communities, taking ownership of their land is a lifeline towards ensuring they can thrive. We already know that community land ownership works as a way of tackling the climate emergency in a fair and socially just way. On the Isle of Egg, community-owned since 1997, an off-grid renewables energy system harnessing wind, hydro and solar power has helped increase the island's population from 65 to 110 residents, transforming it into a sustainable community with secure jobs, affordable housing and a younger demographic. Bridgend Farmhouse, located in one of Edinburgh's most socially deprived areas, provides training and volunteering to build local residents' skills and confidence and reduce social isolation. Much of that work is done through Bridgend's Garden Kitchen, which sources local food from its allotments. This is community ownership, a social renewal with climate benefits, helping people to eat healthier, locally sourced food and reinforcing their place as valued members of the community. In Lewis, the Carloway Estate Trust is coordinating a project in partnership with Scottish Water, Nature Scotland and others to restore 11 hectares of peatland to protect the local water supply and to capture carbon. The Abreachan Forest Trust owns 540 hectares of forest and open hill ground high above the shores of Loch Ness, land the Trust uses to create local employment, improve the environment and provide outdoor learning through its innovative Forest School. In November, the Just Transition Commission published its advice to the Scottish Government on a green recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. That advice emphasises the importance of community involvement and, crucially, land tenure in managing land use changes to address the climate emergency. The Commission's advice also highlights the need to invest in local communities to support new employment in areas such as forestry and peatlands restoration, together with challenges posed by concentrated land ownership. It's clear, therefore, that land reform is needed to deliver a much more diverse pattern of land ownership in Scotland, to enable land use that tackles the climate emergency in ways that promote the well-being of communities whilst delivering wider public benefits. To help deliver the kind of systems change at the policy, organisational, community and individual levels that the community land movement is pioneering. That means ending the scope for the economic value of environmental resources, so-called natural capital, to be extracted from our rural communities by monopoly landowners without them making significant local community investment. It means empowering and resourcing our rural and urban communities to build their climate resilience from the ground up. We urgently need to scale up community land ownership to deliver the kind of land-based climate action demonstrated by Egg, Carloway, Bridgend, Abreachan and many other places in Scotland where ownership of the land lies in communities' hands. Community Land Scotland recently published Land for the Common Good, our manifesto for the 2021 Scottish Parliament election. It places land reform squarely at the centre of dealing with the climate emergency effectively, fairly and systematically. Our recommendations focus on public policy change, organisational support for landowning community trusts, and community-led climate action for community and wider benefit. These recommendations include controlling land monopolies by introducing a pre-purchase public interest test for all significant land purchases in terms of their scale or concentration of ownership to ensure such purchases support sustainable development. Retaining the Scottish Land Fund, which supports community land and asset buyouts, with an increased annual budget of £20 million. Introducing a compulsory community right to buy land to further climate change adaptation and mitigation measures. Introducing a community carbon land fund to enable tree planting, peatland restoration and management, renewable energy initiatives and other carbon mitigation projects on community-owned land. Supporting development and installation of community-led renewable energy initiatives by introducing a feed-in tariff specifically for such initiatives. And finally, introducing incentives for private renewable energy developers to involve communities more fully in renewable schemes to generate significant community benefits.